Hello, welcome to Greenwood Bonsai Studio today. In just a few days it's our annual Bonsai Bash event, open weekend 10th and 11th of May, a free exhibition, free demonstrations. We've got Sean Smith coming over from the USA to help us out this year, do demonstrations. I'm just in the process of preparing a few trees for exhibit. Thought I'd show you this one. This is quite a famous tree. This is English oak that belonged to my father. It's featured on the cover of his book, Complete Book of Bonsai by Dorling Kindersley. There's a copy of you can see it here behind me. Can you pick that up, Josh? That's a photo of this tree in 1990, and then the top of it died off, and about 15 years ago the top had died off, which is this trunk here, and I've spent 15 years regrowing the rest of this tree to what it is now. You can see it's been growing really well. It's just been in a greenhouse actually beginning of this year, so it's got some lovely fresh growth on it. Just going to give it a little bit of a trim. And also we started filming this tree about 4 years ago when I did the first stage of styling and trimming, and when we potted it into this pot. So we're just going to give it a trim, and then we're going to feed into the video unseen, unreleased footage of when we worked on this tree 4 years ago. So we're going to trim it now, then we're going to go back in time, and then at the end we'll show it you all trimmed and finished. So a bit of unusual format for our videos, and I hope you enjoy it, and it's an interesting video to follow up on as this tree's been progressing. It's been a bit of a battle to get it back into shape because so much of the original tree died off. It's not dissimilar to what happens to the English oaks in Sherwood Forest. You know, we're not far from Sherwood Forest here in Nottingham, and the oaks, sections of them have deadwood on, they die off, they send new shoots out, they repopulate, and that's what this one's done, much like the ones in nature. We're just trying to take off a lot of these larger leaves. People always comment, say, you know, your oak's got lovely small leaves on it, how do you keep them so small? And I normally say I keep them small by cutting the big ones off. You know, these large leaves, just taking them off, and look, behind it I'm leaving this size leaf. So it's been growing so well here, we can take that section off, leave the smaller leaves, and the same here, and to some extent just here. And we can trim them back for direction. This is probably ready for repotting next year. We lost track of time. Me and Josh thought it was probably a couple of years ago since we did that first video, and it was pretty much 4 years almost to the week that we did it. So once we've trimmed it all back like that, we can then selectively take off any just single big leaves that we don't want. So I'll carry on trimming this now. We'll feed into the video, and then I'll show you this at the end when it's all trimmed, and hope you enjoy it. Thank you. This is the most recognised image of this oak tree, photographed here in 1989. The apex had got broader, it had filled out, and it was really starting to reach maturity. Unfortunately, in 2010 we had a very, very cold winter here in the UK, coldest winter for 40 years, and a lot of trees suffered. And this particular tree, the following spring, just didn't come into leaf, and we didn't think that we'd lost the tree completely. But in actual fact, it just sat there and didn't do anything, and the following spring it just started to come into leaf with tiny little buds. If you look at the tree, this section here on the right hand side, and here, this was this original trunk. This little hollow here on the trunk is this little hollow here. So that cold winter killed all of this tree off, killed this branch off, and the whole of the tree. And that's why we've got this feature of natural deadwood, which was the original trunk. And it's not uncommon to find trees just like this in nature. Here in Nottingham, we're on the edge of Sherwood Forest, a very well known English oak forest, home to Robin Hood, as you all know. And there's many trees in Sherwood Forest, oak trees, that the tops died off and the tree has resurrected itself from further down the tree. So that's what this tree's done. It's resurrected itself. And what actually has happened is down here, it's budded from the trunk here, and this tree that we see before us has grown from here, and it's now up in this section here, yeah, and all this section has died off. Here's a photograph of the tree 2 years ago, where the little bud that it threw out on the trunk had been growing for about 10 years. And over that time, it's put on this growth that you see in this photo here. It had pretty much grown unchecked during that time, so it had got quite a few bits that were strange structure and bad branches. So I gave it a trim, and after pruning, it looked like this. Now we're fast forwarding 2 years from that first pruning. And I've got the tree in front of me here in the studio, ready to do some work. I've deliberately been leaving it so I can see the buds extending, and I can see where the buds are, which branches are alive, which are dead. It is unfortunately a habit of English oak. They can drop branches over winter. And on this particular one, this little branch here has died off. This little branch round here, and this little one at the back. But the rest of it is very, very vigorous. Now the original front of this tree was here towards you, and I'm aiming to keep this as the same front going forward. There's a few design aspects with this tree that we need to do something about, and I don't know if we can do something about them all, just all at once. Initially, when you look at it, it's got two apexes here, one here and one here. And that isn't uncommon on a tree in the wild, so I might keep those two for now. If I cut this front one off, this back one isn't good enough to make the tree look sensible. And if I cut this back one off here, then this front isn't enough by itself. So at the moment I'm going to keep both. Then we've got this growth in here, but this can be probably taken back to this sort of level. Arguably with this tree, although that's the front there, arguably there's a better front round here towards you guys like this, which would show off more of the dead wood. It would also separate these top apexes, but the snag with doing that is this branch here looks very straight and in a wrong place. So I find this branch a bit annoying from this front. But if I cut this branch off, I don't think it will make the tree any better. So I'm going to retain the original front. You know, obviously my father started this tree off and styled it many, many years ago. It's such a well-known tree, and I'm looking to enhance it, but I don't want to change it too much. I want it to be true to itself. So we're going to keep this front. So what I'm going to do now is basically we're going to take this tree back, trim it back to balance some of this vigour, because we've got such strong growth up here. And I need to, where we've got these shoots like this with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buds on, I want to take it back to 1 or 2 to keep the size and to keep the vigour in the tree. Once we've done that, we're going to repot it. Now it's always been, for the last sort of over 35 years, in this grey Tokoname Japanese bonsai pot. And don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful pot, it really is, but it suited the tree when the tree was like this. But now as the tree has evolved, it's had this mishap, it's now got an area of stunning deadwood. To me, this cragginess of the deadwood doesn't really correlate to this pot. The pot's a bit too nice, a bit too elegant, and a bit too plain for this sort of feature. So I've got another pot. We're going to try it in another pot in a few minutes. But firstly, let's give it a prune. So let's start off with cutting out the obvious stuff we don't need. This branch here is dead. Can't do anything about that now, so that can be trimmed off with a concave pruner. Another section here at the back. There are some little buds that are still alive just there, so I think actually this bit here has died off. This bit here has died off, but there's still a little bit of life in this section. So I'm going to keep that for now. This little bit here has died off, but this is good behind it. So I'm just going to trim that back. This bit here is gone, this bit, and then some of these strong growth, whether we've got growth like this opening on the tip, if I can chase it back, yeah, to smaller buds, that's what we're going to do. Because on an oak, you know, oaks do have a fairly large leaf, and a big bud on an oak means big leaves, and a small bud means small leaves. So if I can take back a lot of these terminal buds and back to these smaller buds, you see in here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 buds. I'm going to shorten it right back to this one, and here right back to this one, hoping that these smaller buds are going to reward us with smaller leaves. In its heyday, this did have quite a tight small leaf and good ramification, and it's the challenge of growing bonsai, you know, and the ups and downs of growing bonsai. You know, this tree has been grown in a pot now for nearly 75 years, so it does need a little bit of upkeep and care and attention. So we're going to work our way up it, taking back the strong growth, hoping to balance it out. All these long bits of growth and buds, this little bit here has died off in here, and it might take, I think it's going to take another few years to get this to where I want it to be. This section here at the rear of the tree, as this comes up, this isn't very good growing upwards. This is okay on this section, so I'm going to shorten this back in here. These big buds, trim them back. Another few weeks, we're going to have beautiful spring growth on this tree. Beautiful sort of orange, pink colour buds on it in spring. And this section here, we're going to keep it for now, but want to reduce it a little bit. You see that middle shoot there? It's quite heavy and clunky. So often when I'm trimming deciduous trees like this, you'll hear me say that we're taking off sort of heavy, clunky growth. We're always taking that back to get more delicate, refined growth on these types of trees. And the thing is, over the years, as you own a tree and branches get heavier and more developed, a lot of owners get more hesitant about pruning those branches back, you know, because they're such developed branches. But it is important to sort of take the bull by the horns and trim them back so that you can get more delicate growth, more usable growth on your trees. We've had so many requests and comments from people since we've started doing these YouTube videos. So many people are saying, what happened to the oak? Have you still got the oak? What does the oak look like? You know, we've had requests about this tree from all around the world, and I was always sort of keeping it in the background, knowing that sort of this day would come that we would work on the tree and show you the evolution of it and the stage it's currently at. So it is nice to be finally showing it to you and working on it, and we've got a fairly special pot to plant it into in a minute as well, so that's going to be quite exciting. This is too heavy. Again, shorten this back to here and here and here. This section back here, this little piece here is dead, and we'll take this back just to a little bud under there and shorten this back. And these at the tips, I'm just going to chase those bits of leaf back. This is a little bit too long, this section here. And in this lower section, again, just going to take these tips off here, take out some of these dead stubs. It's a little bit less vigorous lower down, so I don't want to go too crazy trimming it in the lower part of the tree. This is the piece that had died off. In fact, that whole branch, this is died off. You can see it's dried up. Back to here, back to the trunk. This is dead into here, look. Unfortunately, so there's no point keeping that. Let's take that all the way back to good growth. Okay, I think that's about it for pruning. So if I was to turn it round to face you now, that's the same tree. Now it's had a sort of 10-minute prune. There's little bits we could still change on it. You know, this branch here could come down a little bit into here. And this branch here is hanging down, perhaps wants to come up a little bit into here. But I'm not going to do any wiring on it at the moment. It's been trimmed. The next stage is to get it repotted. So we've just finished pruning this tree, and in the little bit of video that you've already seen, I talked about a couple of different fronts on this tree. And once we've just finished rolling on that section of pruning, I've just been deliberating about the front of this tree, and it's difficult. All bonsai have a front, and the front of the tree is very important. It's the best view, the best angle. It brings the best of the tree to yourself as a viewer. And we said, didn't we, that this front, which is like straight in the middle here, towards you, that front there, was always the existing front of this tree. Now, as this tree has regrown, that front is arguably maybe not the best front anymore. This is what I've been deliberating. With that as a front, the problem I've got is that this trunk here, this branch, just comes out at a funny angle and you can see between them. Yeah? So that's no good. I don't really like it. This branch won't bend out much to make it look more comfortable. It's quite rigid. Also, I've got these two apexes, and one's hiding behind the other. The other front I'd thought about with this deadwood was more round here. But the problem is, if I come round here to the front to show you, with that first front, what I don't like is this and the gap between the two, with these two here running parallel. Yeah. So if I come round, if I turn it, I've got to turn it all the way round so that this one disappears behind this one. So if I carry on turning it so that happens, we've pretty much brings us to a front here, right at the corner of the pot. Now, the advantage of this as a front is it showcases the deadwood. Don't forget, when the tree was planted with that as a front, when my father had it, it didn't have that deadwood. So I'm making a different decision than the decision my father made all those years ago. Now with this as a front, on this corner, what I don't like the way this branch comes out. So I've got to think, I've got to compromise with this tree to give it the best view. Does this branch upset me more than this gap? Is this front, the disadvantage of this, is it outweighed by the advantage of this deadwood? And the top is reasonable. I'm not so fussed about that at the moment. Again, this is going to change in the next few years. This branch is probably less annoying to me when the tree is in leaf. If I took this branch off, I don't think it would add to it. I still think that. Now the other thing is, if I use this as a front, this is weak on this right hand side. This tree was always known for having a really good flare and a buttress at the base, like a mature tree in nature. Once we come round to here, if we do, this is very open. So we might be able to do something with that. And one of the things I've thought about is I've got a piece of rock here. This is actually Japanese Ibagawa rock, but I thought it's a similar texture and colour to the bark. People worry about this sort of thing, and it's always worth having some bits of rock about. So I've just been playing with this bit of rock, and I think if I sat that bit of rock in here, like that, we might prop it up a little bit. And then also I've got a bit of bark here off this tree that fell off that was kind of sat in here, not doing anything. And if I was to place that bit of bark, you know, maybe in here, we could wedge it in, or we could fasten it in somehow like this. That just by doing that, it connects this beautiful deadwood down to here. We can fiddle about with this in future, but potentially from a distance, and once this gets moss on it and it weathers, that's going to give us this flare. And it gives us this flare not in 20 years, but in 20 seconds. So with that in mind, I'm still going to take it out of the pot and think about it, but I am going a little bit more towards this as a front than this as a front. One of the things with bonsai that we're doing as an artist is always reevaluating the tree to always try and get the best from the tree. And the best from the tree might, you know, it would have been here, you know, and now it might be here. In 5 years' time, it might change. We might go back to here. It's you've got to be able to evaluate stuff and decide, try and make a decision. But the next decision with this tree that I've got to make is let's take it out of the pot and let's get it repotted. I just thought it'd be nice to explain my decision choices up to this point. So it's out of the pot and got plenty of root on it. We're just combing some of these roots out with a root hook. Give it a comb out underneath. We're still going into a pot of similar sort of depth, so we don't have to reduce this too much, but just get rid of some of this old soil and some of the encircling roots, and just try and tidy up this this soil surface a little bit. So by doing that, and then some of these big woody roots like this we can get rid of, and then I prune round like this to reduce the depth. I'm just going with a pair of Greenwood scissors and just take off about an inch or so of roots on the underside of this. Quite easily done. It's been potted into just neat akadama or an akadama mix in the past, so we're going to pot it into the same type of mixture now for the next couple of years or so. So you just take a section off like this. Okay, so now comes the time I've taken the tree out of this pot it was in, and I've combed away the roots, so it's ready for repotting. So I want to talk to you a little bit about pot selection. It's an important part of bonsai and of the repotting process, and something that's very important to the image of the tree that we're trying to create. So this is the original pot it was in, beautiful quality Japanese pot, beautiful grey clay. I just felt it was a little bit too finished for this tree, particularly now it has the deadwood on it. So we were going to change the front of the tree as well. We're going to be more sort of around here as the front of the tree, like that. So we'll take it out of this pot and we'll show you a few different ones and see what you think. So do you want to take that one out of the way? Thank you. Now this first one we found is a Walsall Studio ceramics pot, handmade pot, English made, and the front of the tree, obviously I'm just approximating it because I'm stood here at the back, but I think we're about there with the front of the tree. So that's a suitable pot. It's got a nice sort of rough texture to it, which goes nicely with the bark. I'm not sure if the rectangle for this tree is a little bit too much of a formal shape, but that's it resting in there for you to have have a look and think about. And this next pot is a primitive Nanban style pot by Harry Tomlinson, and the image is okay, this rustic form, but the diameter of this pot is too large for this tree at the moment. It would need to be a couple of inches smaller in diameter. So this pot is a pot that I envisaged for this tree. So let me try it in. This is the pot that I've got, Japanese handmade pot, and I felt it would suit this tree like this. There's something about this tree, with it being an English oak, you know, from Sherwood Forest. You know, you've all probably watched your Robin Hood films growing up, and this pot with these rivets on, which is a design often called a drum pot, that's made to look like the Japanese drums. To me, it has a slightly different meaning. To me, this looks more sort of Robin Hood medieval-esque, and I can see that it would therefore perhaps suit this tree. My disappointment in this pot, with this tree in it though, is that this pot is a little bit too big for the tree. So let's just try one more. And arguably, this next pot, at the moment, I did try it in there just a minute ago, but I think size-wise, that is probably the best size for this tree. In depth, it might be nice if it was a bit chunky on the lip. This is another Warsaw Studio pot, beautiful glaze on this handmade pot. Now, I'm quite lucky to have 4 nice pots that we could put this tree into, and I think, on reflection, if the tree was a few more years advanced in twigs and ramification, and we were perhaps going to take it to a show, this should be the sort of pot it should live into. But I'm going to go back to the Robin Hood pot with the rivets on it, because although I admit it's a bit too large at the moment, there's a few things to consider. Firstly, I've just cut this back by several inches, this tree. So in the next year, it's going to fill back out. So it's going to end up being broader. Also, an oak's quite a large leaf tree. So in a few weeks, once it's got larger leaves on it, it won't look as lost in this pot. And thirdly, most important, is that I'm still resurrecting and growing this tree on. So a larger pot is going to benefit the growth of it over the next 4 to 5 years. And lastly, this pot was always my favourite. I was just showing you the others out of interest. Yeah, so it's my tree, my pot, we're going to put it into this one. Okay, right, so we'll get organised, we'll get it potted. Okay, so we've prepared the pot, we've put the mesh in it and a couple of securing anchor wires. We're going to use a mixture of about 60% Akadama and 40% Kiryu. So we'll put a little bit of that in the bottom of the pot. Then we'll take our tree. Be very careful with the dead wood. I think we could perhaps still a little bit low in the pot at that. Let's lift it back out. Put a little bit more. Try it in there again. That's a bit better. It's more sensible. And then let's just wiggle it down onto that soil and get the front of it round here towards me. Perhaps tilt the tree forward a little bit. A bit more compost behind it. The advantage of this pot, the depth of this pot, is that we can get a bit more of a lean and an angle on the tree to be about here with it. And then let's fill it in with the compost and build up this side, and then get some, we'll see if we can incorporate that piece of rock like we had before. Okay, so just finishing off, adding some of the Akadama Kiryu mix. Once we've gone round like that, we'll use a potting stick just to get rid of any air pockets and see the soil level dropping down as we work that around the root system. We'll leave the anchor wires for now, we'll do them last of all. Work that round the back of the tree, like so, and then a little bit more I think on this side. And let's have a look at whether we can use that piece of rock. We'll get these wires twisted together. Bring this one over here like this, bring this one up to meet it, and then just pull and twist just to take up any slack. Any excess wire we can just trim off, same as usual, push that down into the soil. Do the same with these two just here across this section of root ball, and always pull one across and this one up to meet at a right angle. You know, a lot of people just do it like this in the middle. Yeah, it's not as easy as just doing it like this on the edge of the pot. Makes it easier to get to. You get better tension on it as well, and it's less likely to snap the wire. Trim that off and push that down. So once we've done that, let's have a little look at that piece of rock. We've said before, hadn't we, about whether we can incorporate it in here somewhere. Let's get a little bit more Akadama. Come around this side so you can see what I'm doing. We want to really make it look like it just flows down. So we want to try and get it we had it in here before, bit of an angle like this, and then we've got this bit of wood that we may or may not use. Let's see if we've got somewhere. We had it sitting in there before. I think we had the rock a little bit lower down at the back, and we can just tuck it in there like so, and just press that rock in, build up that Akadama underneath it, like so. And then we'll just give it a bit of a wipe down. A bit more Akadama on this back section. Around the front of the pot. Beautiful colour in this clay and this old Japanese pot. So that's it, English oak, all potted into its new pot with the new front, and it'll be stay in this pot for probably about 4 to 5 years now, and we can continue developing the top of it. I'll put a little bit of wound sealant on a couple of these cuts, and then we'll get cleaned down and we'll show you a nice image of it finalised. So here we are with it all trimmed, just on display against a plain background for you. There's still always more work to do, even on an aged tree like this. This dead wood is ready for lime sulphur to preserve it. This branch here, we've had a guy wire on it in the past. It wants another one on to pull it down into here to follow this side a bit better. This one here has always been a bit weak, but it's picking up. And then this one probably wants to come forward a bit, this one into here, and a few of these sorting. We'd had a little guy wire on this, pulling it down. That's held quite well. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to feed, now it's been trimmed, we're going to feed it up well for this year. We're going to do a little bit of wiring on it in autumn once it drops its leaves, just to readjust a few of these branches. But this video spanned about a 4-year period, and you can see how it's come on during that time, and it's getting back to its glory days that it had when it featured on the cover of the book, which is now 35 years ago, and the tree's still doing well now. So I hope you've enjoyed the little video, and thank you very much.